The Worst Podcast Ever can also be listened to on Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and many more. Links in the description below.
So much about
What would you say if I turned into all the things you love to hate? And on my way comes crashing through the rotten beams and window panes.
Hey everybody, what is going on? It is episode 38 and we are back. It is the worst podcast ever. I sometimes forget to say the name at the intro, but yeah, it really is the worst podcast ever. I listen to a lot of podcasts. It's pretty bad. Hey guys, what's going on? Thanks for joining us here. I mean, it's 38. I feel like we should have a party here. I mean, really, you got to do it on either the 5 or the 10. But why can't you do it on the 8? You know, I mean, I don't know. When we get to 50, we're going to do a party. And if we make it to 100, we're definitely going to do a party. But anyway, I hope you guys are doing great. We are back here to talk about a whole bunch of nonsense. Maybe a fair amount of complaining and ranting today. But, you know, join the club. That's just about every episode that I do now. You know, I'll say, well, this episode I'm going to be positive. By this point, we all know that that's not happening. Maybe in small doses, but, we just got done with the Thanksgiving holiday. That was last Thursday. So what is today? Today's Monday. So it was, 3, 4, 5 days ago, 4 days ago. Not very good at math there. Not that it's hard, but yeah, I hope that all of you guys had a very good holiday. Those of us in America, I know, there are some people, according to the statistics here, that listen to me in other countries. So, which is crazy to think, but it happens. So over here in the United States, it was Thanksgiving, and now, which is pretty much like the halfway point to Christmas. I mean, in all honesty, Christmas starts the day after Halloween, and then Thanksgiving is just like the dry run for Christmas, really. We had a very nice a very nice Thanksgiving. I mean, as nice as it could be. We didn't go anywhere. Unfortunately, the wife and the son got the flu a handful of days before Thanksgiving, so we kind of pulled the trigger and said, nah, we don't want to get everybody sick, because we go down to my mother-in-law's house, and then I cook a majority of the meal there, and unfortunately, this year we just weren't able to make it. I'm going to be honest with you. I love staying at home anyway. Holidays sometimes, not, and it doesn't have to do whether it's her family or mine. Sometimes I just don't have it in me. To be around a bunch of people, and especially if it's a long day. The older I get, the more I'm like this. I'm just getting crotchety in my middle age here. But I mean, so the wife and the son had it earlier than she did, and so by the time we got to Thanksgiving, he was pretty okay. The wife was still a little under the weather, so I cooked, and we just hung out and watched the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade, which is, it's just a given that you got to do that. I mean, it's, at least in my household, growing up, my mom and I always sat down and watched the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade. Just always loved doing that. And then we ate and just hung out, and it was very laid back and just very okay. So yeah, and that's it. And now we're in the Christmas season. I have my Christmas tree over there. If you've seen, I got a new Christmas tree right after Christmas last year. Menards, trying to get rid of all their stuff. I got it for pretty cheap, and the lights to go with it. So I used to have a little one here, and I know it was in maybe one or two videos I did a couple years ago, and I had bought that thing for like $10 at the Dollar General, and it turns out it was a return. And that poor little tree, it was the Charlie Brown Christmas tree, because it looked horrible until you put the lights and the ornaments on. And then it was okay. I'm not going to say it looked good, but it looked a hell of a lot better than it did before you put the lights on. But the poor thing was just rickety, and enough of the branches had fallen off from me putting it together. I think I had it up 2 or 3 years. And then I was just like, I got to get rid of it. And now I went bigger. I went a full-size tree down here. And, but hey, whatever. It's all in good fun. We have another Christmas tree upstairs in the front window. We have one downstairs. And that's it. We got 2 Christmas trees. I know I have relatives that'll have like 3 Christmas trees. It seems like they got it one in each room. And it's like, the only problem with that is as much fun and in the mood and in the season that you are when you're putting it up, not so much when you got to take them down. So, and that goes with the lights outside. I do decorate outside, and I did it earlier this year. I did it early because I was like, it was nice out. I'm gonna do it before it gets crazy cold. And then I had strung too many lights together, and then I blew a fuse. Not in the house, but like on one of the strings. I get the bigger bulbs to go around the trim of my landscape, and because they're bigger bulbs, I put one too many strings on there, and they have in the plug they have a fuse, and it blew one of the fuses, so I had to replace the fuse, and then I had to actually flip one of the strings around, and I had to plug that in separate from the rest, like you guys care. Anyway, so exterior illumination is in full effect over here at the Brosman household. That's what I'm saying here. So, what have I been doing lately? Well, besides me being sick and then my family getting sick, because I was sick around Halloween. I know that's like my thing here. I get in and I talk about like how sick we all are over here. Welcome to the school year where the kids bring home everything. And I got to be honest with you. I haven't been doing a whole bunch of gaming as far as, well, I have been. I've been actually doing a lot of gaming, but just with one game. And I held off from buying this game for years because I kind of had a feeling that it was going to be like that. And that is No Man's Sky. I bought No Man's Sky, and I bought it for the Switch. It came out on the Switch. As you guys all know, the Switch is my favorite gaming console of all times. A very close second is the Sega Genesis. And I've always wanted, I love the sandbox games out there. I'm a huge Minecraft guy, although I go in spurts. Like, I won't play Minecraft for a while, and then all of a sudden I'll sit down. And the reason for something like that is because you just, once you get into it, you're not getting anything else done. All of a sudden you're starting a build, and you're working on that world, and like every day you're off, you're sitting there, and then 1 hour turns into 6, and then you have got nothing done. You've shot no videos, no podcast. And, so after a while, I just got to shut myself down and be like, okay, we got to shelve this, and I got to get back to reality here. And that's kind of the reason why I didn't want to dive into No Man's Sky, because it looked like something that would do that, and it kind of did for me. Now, I was going to do a separate video, and I still might, but I was going to do a separate video for my experiences with No Man's Sky, but, it's been out since 2016, so it's not like there's not a video of it out there. And there's been a ton of videos already done about the Switch version. And I can't really talk to how it compares to other versions because I don't have any other version of it. I waited for it to come out on Switch, which I got to say, I was a little surprised that it did come out on the Switch, because you'd always heard that, well, they're working on it, but it's like, it was never like, I never seen anything official, like, yeah, they're working on it. I was always kind of like, yeah, they're probably not working on it. And then it's like, hey, it's coming out. I was like, okay, I guess they were working on it. So what do I think of No Man's Sky? I waited all these years to get it, and I finally got it. And it has hijacked my free time. to put it lightly, it just, all my free time has been playing this game. Or when I'm doing something that I'm supposed to be doing around the house or whatever, I'm thinking, when's the next time I could sit down and play it? Is it better than Minecraft? No, not for me. It's not. Minecraft might be my favorite game of all times. And I know there's people out there, it's like, well, Minecraft's technically not a game. It's a game or a program or whatever you want to say. I consider it a game. So as far as how No Man's Sky runs on the Switch, I know it was a lot of talk about how well is it going to run, because it's going to take a lot, because the Switch is a lot less powerful than like the PS4 or Xbox One X or a PC. And I gotta say, without having played it on anything else, I think it runs pretty well. Although I would be curious to get it for my Xbox One X to see like how much of a difference. But I think it looks pretty good. It runs pretty good. There are some times every now and again you might warp into a system and it takes things a little bit to load in. I get that, but it doesn't take away from anything. I think the game runs pretty smooth. I think it looks pretty well, especially compared to like what I've seen on other systems on like YouTube. It looks pretty damn close. And it's one of those things, it's like, look, if you don't have both versions standing next to each other, are you going to notice? Now, I have a feeling like if you've played this before, you're probably going to notice. But is it going to? But I haven't, which is kind of nice. But I'm really curious to see how it is on another system that's a little bit more powerful. But so what is No Man's Sky? It's a very much a sandbox game. You play it how you want. There are campaigns, there are missions, there is a storyline that I've kind of dabbled in a little bit, but you don't have to do any of that. You can just warp to different systems, and I guess one of the ways you can win the game is get to the center of the galaxy. Now everything's procedurally what do they call it? Procedurally made or whatever, where it just nothing's the same. Every time you play on there, the way the computer generates, procedurally generated, I think that's what they call it, where it's just totally random, and every galaxy is different. No matter how many times you play, you're never going to get the same situation as far as like how the planets look necessarily or whatever. Now they do look, a lot of them do look similar, because I mean, they're using the same assets, they're just mixing it up, and then this planet's going to have this and that. And a lot of times, a lot of the planets will have the same stuff and it'll look the same, and which is whatever. They're still pretty neat to look at. You get a ton of different types of designs of ships. You can upgrade your ship, fairly well, as far as like, earning credits, and then being able to upgrade your ship by buying upgrades as far as weapons and shields and all that. The only thing I will say that I wish you could do is like with your guy, with your actual man or woman or whatever you want to say, the guy, the person that you're playing, your avatar that you're playing, you can go in and you can adjust like the color of his suit, what kind of helmet, what kind of armor, and everything. So you can adjust the way he looks. With these ships, it's just you buy ships. You can't necessarily, you can upgrade your ship, but you can't like design your ship. You can't decide its color or what kind of wings or cockpit or whatever. when you're at a station or a trading post, other ships will come and go, they'll land, and if you go talk to the pilot, you have a chance to maybe buy that ship. Like if you like the way that ship looks, the design, but it's all very much happenstance, and then when you buy that ship, you may have to start all over and upgrade that ship the way you had your last one. So, and I guess like there's a big like ship hunters groups on online, and I haven't really looked into it, where all they do is go and hunt down like certain design ships, and they look for certain ships, I guess. And I haven't really looked into that too much because I'm not that interested in it, to be quite honest with you. But I mean, as random as the ships are, some of the designs that they come up with that it's slapped together looks pretty good. And then other times it looks like, I don't know, you could definitely tell like it's a random thing because the ships don't look good. Like, you'll have certain pieces depending on like what part of the galaxy you're in, and they'll just kind of piece them together. And then you have different classes of ship. You have a fighter, you have a hauler, you have a scout, and, of course, a fighter will go faster. It has better maneuverability. The haulers have more storage, although that's not necessarily true now, because with the upgrades they've done, you can or the upgrade to the game, or updates to the game, I should say, you can upgrade a smaller ship to have a ton of storage if you want. And that's all predicated on, getting enough credits, earning enough credits to buy these upgrades. Okay. So let's go through the good and the bad of this really fast with No Man's Sky. Because there's stuff that I really love about it, and there's stuff that I don't. Okay. Let's start with the negative first, because I want to end with the positive. The negative of this game is with like it falls into the problems that a lot of these open world games have, kind of like Minecraft, where you make of it what you will, but it can get old really fast or really quickly. While there is a storyline that kind of goes through it, it's not really that substantial to where it keeps your interest peaked all the time. And then you have, smaller missions you can get, but those are more just go and attack this freighter and then come back, and I will pay you to have done that. Stuff like that, where you get missions from envoys in space stations. It's very much what you make of it. I mean, you can just go it alone and just be a pirate and do whatever you want and just smash everything. You can buy a freighter and then build up a fleet and send all your ships to go on different missions and all that. And that's fun too. Although you just send them out and they go and then they come back. You don't actually go on the missions with them. You're just kind of like the admiral, the general. You just send them out or whatever. But when the ships are just sitting there, you don't have control over them. They're just sitting there in a fleet formation. And that's something you can do later on with the amount of money. You have to do a lot of crafting. You have to do if you play the game straight up to where it's not in creative mode where you can just do whatever you want, kind of like in Minecraft. If you play it straight up, it is very, very grindy, where you have to, mine certain ores and mine this and find that to piece stuff together, to do upgrades, to refuel your ship. I found, because I think like the first 20 some hours I played, like my initial playthrough, my first one, and then I realized I knew enough of it to where I wanted to start over a new game, because I'm like, oh, I get this now. Let me start over with what I know, But my initial playthrough, I found myself constantly trying to refuel my ship, to go from planet to planet, and to warp out of that planet to get the antimatter, I was bogged down in just refueling my ship, constantly trying to go and get new materials so I could craft the stuff that I needed to go and do this and that. And it was just, and it's interesting at first, but when you realize that after a while, it feels like that's all you're doing. And that kind of is all you're doing. Okay. And that's, to me, the biggest downfall of it is after a while, I don't want to have to worry about fueling my ship up just for me to jump in and take off and go to another planet. Because then it's like, oh, cool, I just want to just go to another planet. And it's like, oh, I'm empty. So now I got to hop out and I got to go find hydrogen and I got to mine that. And then I got to bring it back. And then I got to charge, my thrusters so I can take off. And it's like, if you want to play it that way, I get it. It's just the way I feel like playing it. But I could see very easily where people would get bored with this game. And initially in that, playing it that way, I got bored. Because I was like, I'm tired of doing this. I'm tired of having to constantly mine and mine and mine. And then go to planet to mine. And then you would have to refine some of the material to get other different materials. So you could craft other materials. So you could upgrade your ship. So you could do this or that. And it just, after a while, it's just like, you play 6 hours and all you've been doing is mining and trying to get, I play Minecraft, but Minecraft's a little bit more, it's make of it as you will too. It can get like that too, but I never really got bored with I played survival mode, not hardcore. So survival mode, which is what kind of this is. I never got bored with it like I did with No Man's Sky, playing it straight up. Okay. So that's the con of the game. And it's there are other cons. I wish that the fleets, like the capital ships, I wish you were able to, like, along with how you upgrade your regular fighter, your regular ship that you fly, I wish you were able to upgrade like the weapon systems and everything of your frigates and everything, to where it isn't, well, you can upgrade them, but it's like only for this mission. No, I just want to upgrade them. Or that you were able to control these and go battle other fleets. It doesn't really work like that in here. I can get in my ship and I can go shoot freighters, but only their cargo containers will blow up. Or their turrets. Like, I can't blow the whole ship up, which really kind of sucks. I wish that, like, the whole fleet, like, you could just put a battle fleet together and just go and attack another fleet and have, like, this big battle in the middle of space. And it's not really like that. You have to switch over to your normal ship that you fly yourself and go and attack a fleet. And so I think it's kind of a miss there, okay? And like I said, it is very much what you make of it. Okay, so there is a way to build like bases on different planets, which is really cool. I do enjoy that. And, you have to get the blueprints for certain builds, for certain buildings. You have to be able to build it. You have to mine. Once again, you have to mine to get the resources to do that. And it is a curve. It's a little bit of a curve learning how to build stuff in the landscape and how all the physics kind of work. And I will say, to me, it felt a little clunky. And it does get better as you kind of learn the ins and outs of how that works, piecing certain buildings together and how to power them and to where it looks good and everything. It's not as intuitive as like Minecraft is. Minecraft, I feel, works a little bit better with being able to build stuff or whatever. This is a little bit more clunky when you're building it. Like when you go to lay something somewhere and you're trying to even out the land, and the land never quite evens out, and so you can kind of build here, but you kind of can't. I think that they can refine that even more. going forward. Now, I will say it's not horrible. It works well, but it's not great. Like, I do enjoy playing the game, and it doesn't necessarily take away from the game, but I felt myself a little disappointed when it came to that part of the game because I was used to Minecraft, which is it's a very smooth experience when you're building stuff, and it didn't feel like that with No Man's Sky. Okay. And I think that is the end of the cons here. So that's the cons. If I think of something else, I'll say it. Here's what's great about it. And to the point of where it can be grindy and you have to go and mind your resources, it seems like constantly. Where this differs from a game like Minecraft is where in Minecraft, you have 3 ways you could play. You could play hardcore, where that just means once you die once, that's it. The game's over. You don't respawn. You have to start all over. And then you have survival, where you can die, okay, but you have to go through and mine stuff and craft stuff to put everything together. And then you have creative, where you never die and you can do whatever you want. You have every single thing that you would want and as much of it as you want, and you can go do whatever you want. In No Man's Sky, while you do have where you could play the regular game, kind of like survival mode, and you have creative mode where you never die and you can do whatever you want and have whatever you want, there is also an option to customize your playing experience, which I absolutely love. And so it's very much a middle ground between creative and that survival mode where, do you want to be able to die? Do you want to be able to take damage? How much damage do you want to take? And it's very much to where you can, how much do you want to pay for, fuel, or do you want unlimited fuel, or how much does stuff cost? Do you want to pay for stuff, or is everything going to be for free? And you can click these boxes and customize the game to be as much of a grind or as much free play as you want, where it is easy to find that medium ground to where it's like, okay, it feels like I still have to do something and I still feel accomplished when I go to do something, but I don't feel like I just spent 6 hours trying to get off a fucking planet because I'm trying to mine shit. You know what I mean? So there's very much a happy medium, and that is great. That was genius. I don't know if that would work on something like a Minecraft, but in this instance, it was very much a great idea, because I think if it was only one or the other, I would have stopped playing this game a long time ago, because creative mode, there's no consequences, there's no benefit, you don't feel like you accomplished anything, where if you played the game straight up, you're grinding a lot. So, but I will say after, I don't know, I played it 100 hours, maybe I think we're coming up on close to 100 hours now. So what are my impressions? I really like this game. I wonder how long I will be interested in this game, though, because like I said, it's very much what you make of it. And I know I keep saying that, but it's true. I mean, that's what this game is. It's very much what you make of it. It's how you want to play it. And I could see at a point in time where I'm just I'm just bored of this game. I got to set it down. But I can also see this game being after 2 or 3 months, I'm going to come back to it and I'm going to play the shit out of it again. We'll have to wait and see. It is a great game. It is made by pretty much a company, a small company that's kind of an indie company. It's very much an indie company. It's in what they have done with such a small company making this game, and especially the way it came out, because it had a very rocky road when it first came out. Leading up to its initial release, they promised a lot of things that they did not deliver when that thing came out. And they could have easily have just folded under the pressure, but those guys, got all that other stuff out, and they are still upgrading this game, adding stuff and refining it. And kudos to the guys at Hello Games, just really good job. I really have enjoyed your game so far. There are things that, probably could be done a little bit different or added to be a little bit better, add a little bit more flair to the game. But I got to be honest with you. I love the way the game plays. It controls pretty well. I mean, it's not 100%. It can, in certain instances, it can get kind of clunky, but overall, a majority of the game handles itself very well, and especially on a system that isn't known for being all that powerful. So I give it 2 thumbs up on the Nintendo Switch for No Man's Sky. All right. Unfortunately, since the last time we got together here, we talked, there's been a couple deaths that have happened, that are just, I always wonder if I should talk about this stuff on the podcast. I don't want it to be downer, but on the other hand, this is a lot of people that listen to this podcast. This is important, that we celebrate these people, because in the the nerddom that we exist in, these people were very big to a lot of people. And the first guy I want to mention is Kevin Conroy. And if you don't know who I'm talking about, if you've watched, Batman, the animated series from back in the day, if you have played Arkham Asylum, Arkham Knight, any of those games, it is all his voice on Batman. He, for the last, 20-some, 30 years, has been Batman. Every time I've seen an animated anything that's Batman and it wasn't his voice, I'm like, what the hell's going on here? His voice became synonymous with the way Batman sounded, with the way Bruce Wayne's voice sounded, as far as the animated goes. And he did play a brief part as Bruce Wayne in one of the Infinite Crisis and Infinite Earths on the CW, as Bruce Wayne in one of the universes, which was really cool. And unfortunately, Kevin had been fighting cancer. I think it's been for a little while now, because I want to say that at some point in the past, I read that he had gotten cancer, and I can't remember which kind he had. And it's all no bueno for sure. And it just, it breaks my heart when I have to talk about anybody passing away here. But, to somebody that, that you didn't know that you knew because you had grown up with his voice and all this animated stuff, it's just so bad. And with both of these guys I'm going to talk about here is everything that I've heard from people that I know and other people that I've seen online talking about that have met these people at conventions or wherever, have all said that great guy, that Kevin never shied away from taking time to say hello, to appreciate his fans, and listen to how much those fans appreciated what he did and what he brought to the character of Batman. And, I don't think there's, it's so nice when somebody that you look up to, I don't even know look up to, but somebody that you appreciate that does work like that, and then you meet them and they are every bit the great person, the nice person, the courteous person that you would hope that they would be. And Kevin, him and with his Batman, and with Mark Hamill and his Joker, that was it. That's as good as it gets. And Kevin's Batman going forward, that's gonna be the gold standard. Where everybody in the sports world compares every new great NBA player to Michael Jordan. Well, Kevin is the Michael Jordan of the Batman voice. and Bruce Wayne. And that's going to be it forever. Oh, this guy, this new guy voiced Batman. Yes. But is he as good as Kevin Conroy? And that's just what Kevin brought to the table. And it is so horrible to see that he is no longer with us, and our sympathies and our prayers go out to his friends and family, the people that really did know him. Really a great, huge loss to the world. And unfortunately, not too long after, and a little bit more recent, and somebody that I didn't really know all that well as far as who this person was, Jason David Frank died, and passed away. And if you don't know who this is, he's the actor that played the Green Ranger and then later on the White Ranger on the Power Rangers. This one to me doesn't hit home nearly as much because the Power Rangers, just because I'm unfamiliar with the Power Rangers, the Power Rangers were a little bit after me. My sister, who is 8 years younger than me, was in the Power Rangers, so I have a feeling, this is more for like the people that were probably in their mid to late 30s now. But he is another guy that, from everything I've seen, that people that have met him at conventions, he always had time and a kind word and demeanor, and just a really cool guy. And unfortunately, for David, Jason, he took his own life, and which is very, it's just so sad. And that's a tough one. That's really a tough one. And every time I hear that, it just really just hits home to me, even more. And, I'm not afraid, I'm not ashamed to say it, but I am somebody who deals with depression and anxiety in my life, depending on certain times. I've dealt with severe depression and anxiety, and I don't know what David or Jason was going through, but people are always, no matter how they look on the outside, people may always be going through, dealing with something that everybody else doesn't know about, and, I can only imagine what would drive, Jason to do something like that. But, it's just too bad that he couldn't figure out before he came to that being the only option for him. And as somebody that, like I said, has dealt with his mental health, had mental health issues in the past, it's just very, very sad to see that's the way he went. And I would say to anybody else out there, if this is something that you deal with and that you're struggling with, one, never hesitate to ask family or friends for help. They are there. If they are your friends and they love, or in your family and they love you, please go get help. Ask them for help. And, there's nothing wrong with going to see a professional and talking. I know myself, I did it. I know there's stuff you can take. I was never a big fan of that kind of way to deal with it, but sometimes that works for a lot of people. But, know that, that there is a way to dig yourself out of that hole. And a lot of times it's going to take the help of friends and family to find your way back into the light. And, it can be a very all-encompassing thing that just takes your life over. And just know that, before you come to decision to do something drastic, that, those same people that, could help you and love you, you're going to just devastate them if you are not there anymore. And, there is always a better option. even if it seems like there's not. So, you know, I mean, that's all I'm going to say about that. But it's unfortunate that we lost these two gentlemen. And, you know, again, to Jason's friends and family, all the thoughts and prayers to those people. They will all be sorely missed. So, as you guys know, I talked the last time I just came back from Disney World on vacation. And, you know, everything that goes along with that, which, you know, I sometimes hesitate to say vacation after I went to Disney World because it's not a vacation like I think of a vacation. It's not as relaxing as I want for a vacation. But, you know, Disney has gone through things over the last handful of years that I don't agree with necessarily in the way things are being handled. And about, I want to say 2 or 3 years ago, there was a big shakeup in Disney where the chairman of the board and the CEO of Disney Corporation, Bob Iger, decided, you know what, I'm old enough, I'm in my 70s, I want to retire, I just want to retire. Now, Bob Iger had been the guy at Disney for a very long time, and there is very few people that know how to run a company as well as Bob Iger. But, you know, like with anything, sometimes it's just time to move on. And there was another gentleman who was in charge of the parks there in management, and his name was Bob Chapek, and he was the hand-picked successor to Bob Iger. Let's just say that Bob Chapek did not wow the world when he took over Disney. Now, we have to understand also that Bob Chapek took over right before the pandemic hit. So he took over at a time to when all of a sudden it was like, uh-oh, you know, everything's closed now with Disney. The parks are closed. The cruises are closed. You know, making movies, making any sort of productions, they're all closed. Which is, you know, to say, hey, this is the business that you're in charge of, but we can't do anything right now to make money. So from that point of it, I kind of feel bad for Bob Chapek because he had a real steep mountain to climb right when he took over the company. But that being said, there was also a bunch of things that Bob had done over the last handful of years that have really, really not gone over well with what fans of Disney. And if you know the fans of Disney, like people that when they call themselves Disney nuts, that's not too far off, because the people that are avid Disney fans are absolutely crazy. And not a fan with the fans, and also a lot of evidently the board of Disney and what was going on. And, you know, a lot of things stemmed from, you know, his handling of Pixar, where he took a lot of like these motion pictures that Pixar had produced and decided we're not going to put them out in theaters. We're going to just put them straight to Disney Plus and streaming, which is asinine because you spent millions and millions of dollars on these movies and didn't make a cent back from them. Didn't put them out. And this was after everything had opened back up. Well, as it turns out, Disney had some sort of meeting to where the company had lost, I want to say it was something like $4 billion this year. And a lot of it had to do with like what was going on with Disney Plus, their streaming service. And we're going to talk about, at the end of this, we're going to talk about streaming services and what that kind of means for, you know, my collecting physical media like movies and stuff like that. But like where are these streaming services at? Because Netflix has had a very rocky road this year as well, and last year. But anyway, so basically, you know, the people, your investors, are there to make money. And when they're not making money and when they're losing money, something's got to change. And evidently the hammer came down pretty fast and pretty quick and without him knowing. So, I mean, I'm laughing, but I feel bad for the guy too. I mean, even though he's making millions. And the kicker of this all is this past summer, Disney just re-upped his contract for another 3 years, which, I mean, so that's how bad everything went downhill, how fast everything went downhill, because they were like, yeah, you're good enough, we're going to keep you around for another 3 years, and it's like, nah, you're out. Which, you should have figured that out beforehand. It would have been nice, because now you're not on the hook to pay him millions of dollars. Kudos to Mr. Chapek. You got a big check coming to you. Anywho, so the way this went down, and this happened last week, I want to say, Disney Plus was going to live stream an Elton John concert. And in fact, Bob Chapek was supposed to introduce Elton John that night. Introduce him, have him come out, and then they're going to live stream. And it was right before the concert. Bob Chapek was there and I'm not really sure how he was notified, but at some point there was notified before he introduced Elton John and left. Got out of there. He didn't even get a chance to introduce Elton John. I mean, it's just so crazy. And then a lot of the other Disney employees that were there, like upper management or whatever, they didn't even know about this. It was a very small amount of people that knew that this was coming. And this is how fast it went down. That Bob was getting the axe. And Bob Chapek. And that Bob Iger was coming back. And evidently, it was a very, very big surprise to Mr. Chapek, the way this all happened. And the axe did swing and come down fast. The hammer also just didn't come down on him. Now, one of the big things that Chapek did when he got into Disney was add another tier of middle management, which is always good. Nothing like adding another layer of guys that get paid a obscene amount of money, but, don't know anything. That's a great plan. And I guess a lot of those guys got sent their walking papers as well. And now they brought Bob Iger back in for I think 3 years to kind of right the ship as much as he can and to find somebody else to take over for him. So, I didn't like a lot of how he handled what he did with the parks. Disney as a whole is not my favorite corporate entity right now. I don't like the way Bob Chapek has handled Star Wars, because it turns out that he is one of the main reasons why we haven't had a live action Star Wars movie in forever. And I mean, not only haven't had one in a while, but they're not even making one. It's not even in production. I mean, and they were supposed to have all these things lined up. And as it turns out, a lot of it was because of what Chapek wanted. And so it's hard to say what kind of differences we're going to see here going forward. But I know a big thing that Disney's going to struggle with here going forward is this streaming service, Disney Plus. Now, I have Disney Plus. I like Disney Plus. I love it. I think they have really good content. I didn't buy it for the new stuff that they're coming out. I bought it for all the old stuff, the cartoons and the old Disney movies, and I have my son's 9, and so when I bought it, I think it was a couple years ago, and so it's great for kids. Great to have for kids, because then, you're out somewhere, you're on a road trip, they have the tablet, boom, Disney Plus, it's great, but the streaming service is losing money. It's losing tons of money. And the problem is, too, when you take movies and that you should put in the theater to make that money back and to actually not only break even, but to actually make money, then you just put it on the streaming service. That's a problem. And I think this is a problem that we're going to see continue into the future with a lot of these streaming services. And we've already seen it happening to Netflix. And I know we're kind of switching gears over here now, but I want to talk a little bit about this. And I don't know how much I've talked about Netflix and all these streaming services. I think I reported on when Netflix lost all that money earlier. I want to say, I think it was this year or maybe late last year. At any rate, there is a problem with the model of how these streaming services operate. And a lot of these streaming services operate at a loss, which is crazy. But I know for a fact that Netflix loses money and has always lost money in its streaming service, which is crazy to think about because how long Netflix has been around now. But the way a lot of these new streaming services and Netflix work is now that they are producing a lot of, their own stuff, their TV shows and episodic shows and then movies, but the movies don't go anywhere except on their streaming service. Now, all of that is predicated on the fact that this is the stuff that's going to get people to come into your service. This is going to entice all these people to come in. The fact of the matter is you got two things going against you now. One is there's only a finite amount of people and households that you're going to get to sign up for that stuff. And at a certain point, there's a plateau, and you're going to hit that plateau, and that's it. Unless you raise the prices of your service. And then you run the risk of people jumping ship. Okay? And the second one is the amount of new players that have come into the market. It used to just be Amazon, but then it used to just be Netflix, and then you had Amazon Prime, and then you had Disney Plus, but now you got Paramount Plus and Hulu. But Hulu's a little bit different because Hulu is owned by Disney actually. And ESPN. And we're going to get to that too, because Disney's in, a little bit of trouble here maybe, as far as what they've been doing with ESPN and their streaming services. But here's the thing. I got to believe that within the next year or two, you're going to see a big shift in the way a lot of these streaming services are, because really we should be paying a lot more than we are for these streaming services. And the one thing about, streaming services is that I think they're an excellent value, especially for the amount of content that you get in there. But the problem is if you're making movies and you're not sending them out to theaters for people to go and see them and earn that money back, and then you just put them straight to your service, you're not making any money. That you just lost, $100 million down the drain of making this movie, but you're not getting that money back. Did that one investment bring a whole bunch of subscribers in? Probably not. And if you're like Netflix does not advertise any of this new stuff. Netflix is notorious for not promoting themselves. They promote nothing. I never see anything anywhere saying, hey, look at this movie on Netflix or whatever. I'm not saying that they don't do it, but they do it very little. Now, I will say Netflix is kind of turning things around a little bit as far as hey, they're doing limited releases out in the theaters. But really, if you're going to make movies, you got to put them out in the theaters. Because if you're just going to spend that kind of money and then put them on your streaming service, you're done. And Netflix, I don't care how many tiers you have and how many ads you have, they're going to be on the way out because the ad levels are not going to get you there. They're just not going to get you there. And that's going to go for Disney Plus, and that's going to go for, whoever else is out there. Amazon Prime's a little bit different. But I mean, it's still the same deal. I mean, it's a great, what you're paying and the amount of subscribers that you have for these services. It's not going to offset each other, especially to make money, which, I mean, why else would you be doing this other than the intent that in the end, at the very end, the end game is to make money, but they're losing money. So it's going to be interesting to see where these guys go. And, the reason why I started talking about this is Bob Chapek did a lot of things, especially with Pixar, to where he just it's just going straight to streaming, which pissed a lot of people off in Pixar. And a lot of people almost left. And I think some people did leave. Not a well-liked guy amongst a lot of people in Disney. And there was a lot of celebrating and cheering, I guess, when Mr. Chapek got sent his packing orders. But it's going to be interesting because, we're coming into a point now to where, at the beginning, streaming services were a good way to, cut the cord. Remember when that was big? Cut the cord. And I moved into this house 7 years ago. It was 7 years ago, 7 years ago. And we moved in here. I'm like, dude, I don't want to pay all this money for cable. We'll just get the internet. We'll just have the internet and then some streaming services, and I'll get, an antenna or whatever and do it that way. And, it never works out the way it's going to work out. You think it's going to work out. And anymore, because you try to figure out how to get your regular TV, which the antenna, I mean, the way everything's gone digital doesn't work that well, especially depending on where you live, what kind of reception you would get with an antenna. But more importantly, there are a lot of ways you can get normal services, or I should say normal channels. You have YouTube television, you have Hulu TV. There's a couple others around here that people do. I can't remember what they are. And, and then there's a certain price range for those. The problem is when you decide, well, if I do that and I just do some streaming services, the problem is as soon as you cut, let's say around here it's Comcast. As soon as you stop your cable service, if you don't have at least two services going, something else, another service of theirs going with their internet, your internet goes up. And then all of a sudden, what you wanted to save as far as switching, getting rid of your cable and going with something else, but having to keep your internet, it makes it not worth it. Either it's about even at that point, or it's so close where why bother? So it's going to be very interesting going forward here, because what are these streaming services going to do? Are they going to up their prices? Are they going to start putting more of these movies into theaters, or are they just going to fold? And how long is that going to take? Because I keep waiting for Netflix, because I'm like, and I have Netflix. Do I watch a lot of Netflix? Not nearly as much as my wife. To be honest with you, I watch a lot more Disney Plus. But and now all these providers are trying to add a higher tier. They want you to pay more, but also offering a lower tier where you don't pay as much, but you also get an ad. It's an ad level, so you get ads with your shit, which no. So I don't know. I mean, Bob Chapek, he's out with his millions of dollars that I'm sure he's got a golden parachute. He's going to be fine. Don't worry, guys. He's going to be fine. But these streaming services, Disney Plus, Netflix, they're all going to have to figure this shit out. And that's why I'm not a big, like, hey, they're convenient as all hell. I'm not going to lie. They are. But I still buy movies. I buy movies all the time because just like that, those services could dry up. And then those movies, you want to watch this movie, you want to watch that movie. Now, I'm sure that's not going to happen. I'm sure there's always going to be an option out there. At this point, there's probably always going to be a way to see these movies as far as streaming goes. But, I just don't like not having that control over, paying for something and then all of a sudden it being there 1 second and then it not being there the next. So, but that leads into another thing here, which is Disney is getting sued by the people. I think it's a class action lawsuit. Now, the specifics of it, I may get a little bit off. Look, I am an expert in nothing. Let's just get that out of the way. I mean, if this is your first time coming, there is a reason, or listening to this podcast, there is a reason why it's called the worst podcast ever. It's because I talk about shit, but I don't know a lot. So a lot of times it's like, take this for what you will. But what I do know is the subscribers, supposedly from YouTube TV, are suing Disney for, what do you want to call it? For affecting the prices that other streaming services are charging their subscribers. Now, what do you mean by that? Because it's like, well, why? How would Disney affect? Well, here's the thing. So going back to cutting the cord, a lot of these, if you're not going with cable, YouTube television is one thing where you can get local channels. It's almost like cable, but it's just through YouTube. Same thing with Hulu, and any of these other services. And I should have wrote them down. I can't think of. There's a couple more around here that you can do. Here's the rub. So not only does Disney own Hulu, but they also own ESPN. Okay. And ESPN is very, very, obviously it's very, very big. Everyone knows what ESPN is. And what Disney does is, hey, they say to, YouTube television or whatever, they say, look, man, you can have ESPN on your streaming service, but this is what you're going to pay. You're going to have to pay more. And in turn, your subscribers are going to have to pay more. And what I do know is this has to do with antitrust laws. And I don't know if it necessarily breaks them, but I know it skirts, it's very close. I'm not going to give you a lesson in law. I'm not going to give you a lesson of how this would break because, look, I don't know that I would be able to correctly convey that to you guys. And I'm not even sure I understand how exactly that works myself. What I do know is, look, hey, if Disney's going to these other guys going, hey, anything else that you guys are putting out on here is, this is how much you guys have to pay to be able to have this on your service. But we're not going to give you ESPN for that. We're going to make you guys pay more. And in turn, because, no company just eats the losses. They turn around and they give it to their customers by higher prices. And evidently, people have a problem with that. Which, look, there's two ways I think of this. It's kind of sleazy a little bit. Kind of sketch, of that's what you're doing. But also, you know what? You don't have to agree to that. Now, that being said, let's say you don't agree to it. Let's say I'm YouTube TV, okay? And I say, no, I'm not paying that much for ESPN. That's ridiculous. I don't have ESPN. Now somebody else Uh-oh, somebody else is here. Anyway, it's the wife. So, anyway, I was like, who's here? The wife. I forgot the wife was coming home early from work today. I'm like, someone's breaking in. What was I talking about? So anyway, let's say YouTube TV decides not to go with ESPN, well, now what the next service down is like, well, we'll pay that price. So how many people is it going to be important enough for them to go and pass up YouTube TV and go to the next guy who's like, yeah, we'll pay those prices? It's ESPN. That's pretty big as far as in the sports world goes. And that's got to be a huge chunk of people that you're going to lose if you decide to go that route. So that you're really forcing the hands of a lot of these other providers by saying, hey, this is what you got to pay for ESPN. If you don't like it, that's just too bad. And so I don't know. I mean, it's, I threw it on here because I just heard this, what was it, yesterday on another podcast. And I'm like, man, that is really interesting. I know it's a little bit on the dry side, but I'm willing to bet you that all of you deal with some sort of streaming service. Maybe a lot of you also don't have cable. Maybe you guys do that Hulu TV, which that wouldn't affect them because it's owned by Disney. But you get your regular TV outside of cable, maybe through YouTube TV. And then like I said, I can't remember what the other ones were, but I know in this area there's at least a couple other ones, a couple other options. But it is what it is. I've already been talking too much about this. So what do you think? Do you guys think that this is a little shady on Disney's part? Or do you think, hey, they own it. They have the right to do it. Those other people don't have to play ball if they don't want to. Is it that easy? I don't know. I really don't know. But it'll be interesting to see how this lawsuit plays out. Anyway. So Andor, the first season has come to an end. And I know the last time I've spoken very little about Andor, other than the fact that I've absolutely loved it. And that was, I don't even know if we were halfway through the season yet. Or maybe we were like halfway through the last time I talked about Andor. Well, the last time I had an episode. So where am I at with it now? I mean, season 1 is over, and what do I think of how this first season went? And I think it was absolutely, hands down, some of the best Star Wars that I have seen in a really, really long time. And I even posted this on Twitter and Facebook and all that. And I said, look, this show is so powerful and builds up so much emotion, and does it in a way that it's a very slow burn, but it brings it all together to a head at the end of the season. And this could possibly be the best Star Wars since Empire Strikes Back. And for those of you at home that don't know, for me, the best Star Wars movie ever was Empire Strikes Back. For me. You may have a different one that's your favorite, but for me, I think that Empire Strikes Back was definitely my favorite out of all the Star Wars movies, but I think it's the best one out there. And I think that Andor is the best Star Wars that we've seen since then. And that's a big thing to say, because I know a lot of people that have seen it have been, especially the ones that haven't gotten all the way through. I don't know, the first 3 episodes it's just so slow and there's not a lot going on and this and that. That's true. It's not a sexy movie. It's not a lightsaber every 2 seconds, blasters going off every 2 seconds. It's a very slow burn. But what it does is it sets up the tone of that world that Star Wars has never done before in that universe. And if you're going to go back and relive that point in time, as far as, not expanding the universe to another era in the Star Wars universe, if you're going to stay in the original trilogy's era, this was absolutely hands down the way you should do it. It slow burns that emotion. It lets you know how the average person in that universe sees themselves and deals with the Empire and what they think of them. Because in the original movies and even in the prequels, you're not dealing with the average Joe in that universe. You are dealing with, people that were at the top of everything. You're dealing with the people that were at the top of the Empire. You're dealing with the people that were in the top of the rebellion. And that all kind of changed when they did Rogue One, which Cassian Andor was in Rogue One. And obviously that's what this is based off of. And I cannot tell you how much I enjoyed this show. And the finale was some of the best TV I've seen in a long time. And I'm going to give some spoilers here. So if you haven't gotten to the end, this is where you're going to check out, because I have to mention this. In the last episode, Cassian Andor's mother dies. And you kind of already, she died in the last episode. So this is going to be her funeral. And you kind of already knew that in her younger years that she was kind of a rebel against the Empire anyway. But in her waning years, not so much, just because of her age and her condition. And she dies, and they have a funeral for her on her home planet of Ferrix. And you could tell, like, the way they do the town in Ferrix, I think it's called Ferrix, the way they do that, it feels like an old, like, steel mill town where everybody was very close. Everybody knew his mother, respected his mother, and loved his mother, meaning that she did so much for those people. And she had a last goodbye with a hologram and gave a monologue that I have watched like 30 times. I kid you not. I get chills every time I watch it. And the way it ramps up and the way she connects herself and connects the tissue of that universe and everybody there watching it. You can read everybody's mind. Not even read everybody's mind. You could feel that everybody in that town that was there to say goodbye to her as she's talking, you could feel the emotion that was coming from those people. And in the end, it boils over and things and the emotion just explodes. And now you have the rebellion. And it shows where that rebellion stems from and where it came from. And enough's enough. And you don't need to see Obi-Wan Kenobi, what he's doing on Tatooine, and drag him through that to have a good show. You have to have good writing, and you have to have emotion and a storyline that goes somewhere. And where we are going is to the beginning of the rebellion. What it takes, the sacrifice that these people gave before we seen the original characters in the first 3 movies. And I cannot wait until the second one. Guys, I fucking love this show. It is so good. And me saying that, as much as I love Andor, to the people that say I didn't really care for it, I totally understand. I totally understand. I get that this may not be for everybody, and I never say that. I say it, but I may never mean it. If you haven't watched the show, or you haven't watched it all the way, maybe, you watch 3 or 4 episodes and you're just like, it's too slow. Look, if you're a fan of Star Wars, at least give it to the end and then see where you are. I mean, if you already have Disney Plus, you might as well. You're paying for it, right? Give it a chance. And if you're not happy with it, then you don't have to watch the other season. But I gotta say, I love how everything ties in at the end. I just love the fact to where it's just not like, hey, well, these guys are bad and we're good and we're just, this is right and they're wrong and we have to make everything right again in the universe. It's that slow burn. It's like, what did these people suffer at the hands of the Empire that made the whole galaxy turn on the Empire and made them blow up 2 fucking Death Stars because they hate these motherfuckers so much? I love it. You got to check it out. And at least if you're not going to check out the whole rest of the show, go on YouTube and or if you have Disney Plus, go and check out Cassian Andor's mother's speech at the end. It is so fucking good. I love that show. It's going to be 2 years until they get the next season out. And that really sucks that I got to wait 2 years, but I am going to be ready. I am going to be flipping ready. I'm like, let's get this rebellion started, motherfuckers. Woo! All right. Well, that being said, I think that's where we're going to wrap up now. It's time to go start a rebellion, guys. Well, I hope all of you guys enjoyed this one. It was a little bit on the dark side here. We had some sad stuff going on and sad stuff to talk about. Not a lot of gaming stuff. I got to tell you, I got to get away from No Man's Sky. This holiday season, I'm going to try and pull myself away from that, and I'm going to get back to doing some gaming. But it is what it is. Hey, listen, I got my monies out of that game. I really like No Man's Sky. If you're thinking about buying it on the Switch and you weren't sure how good it is, I don't think you're going to be disappointed. I really don't. I mean, for a game that came out in 2016, they're selling it at full price for $60. That's kind of like, I don't know about that, especially when I know that I could get it for like at conventions. I've seen it for like $5 on the Xbox, so that's a little. But it's my favorite console, the Switch. So of course I'm gonna buy it on the Switch. And that is it, ladies and gentlemen. We are wrapping it up. I hope you guys all enjoyed this episode. I thank you for showing up. I hope all of you guys are having a great day. Thanks for coming in and sitting here and enjoying Nerdum and everything that we talk about. And I love you guys all. Until next time, good night and goodbye.
Wow, it's a schooner.
You dumb bastard. It's not a schooner, it's a sailboat.
A schooner is a sailboat, stupid head.
You know what? There is no Easter Bunny! Over there, that's just a guy in a suit!